Hey, everybody, welcome to the podcast. Jeremy Sutton here, your host, and I'm with Nic Fitzgerald of Friendly Giants Films. He's the president and CEO of Friendly Giants. You can find him at friendlygiantfilms.com. And we're going to talk a little bit about business and story and struggle and victory and all that stuff today. Nic, thank you so much for coming on the show, man.
Hey, Jeremy, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Awesome, awesome. So the first thing I have to say is if you're listening to this on podcast, you can't see, but Nic has a stormtrooper behind him. So, Nic, do you like Star Wars a little bit?
Just a little bit, yeah. Just a wee bit. If you are watching or listening on the podcast, I have a whole bunch of Star Wars action figures and lightsabers and posters and the Darth Vader mask and all sorts of stuff. Star Wars has been a huge part of my life ever since I was a kid, and it's continuing on to this day because they keep making movies. So why not, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then they released The Mandalorian this year, and I don't know why they only gave us like 6 or 7 episodes because I watched those in like 3 days.
I know it's funny how we live in this culture of binge watching and being able to consume on demand however much we want, and then to have to wait. They only released one episode each week. It's just like, Thursdays became Mandalorian Day,
right.
At our house.
Yeah,
it's just crazy.
That's funny. So it's funny because you say that. I forgot that till you said that they just released one episode a week. And it's like, I remember watching the first episode and thinking, oh, it's like TGIF all over again. It's like Full House. We got to wait another week to see an episode. What is this?
Yeah.
That's not the day we're
looking crazy.
Awesome. Cool. Well, man, thank you again for coming on the show. And so I just want to kind of set some context for what we're going to do. And, my wife and I have bought a business a few years ago, and we had to file bankruptcy, and we got sued a couple of times. So now we're rebuilding. I'm back working full-time as a PT and building an online business. And so I really just wanted to talk to people who have built successful businesses and extra points if you struggled and come through it. And so we really, that's why I got you here. So, I'd love to hear your story about, your early life, starting out a business, what struggles you had and things like that.
Yeah. Well, the first thing to lay the groundwork for anybody who's thinking of starting a business or who is in the process of building one is that there's always something that you're going to be struggling with, and everyone's challenges are different, right? So if you don't have the same challenges that I've gone through, don't feel like, oh, I can't make my business to grow because I didn't have the same challenges. Like, we all have a very different path that we're on, but they are always full of challenges and obstacles and ups and downs and twists and turns and all that kind of stuff. And my story is absolutely follows that narrative, right? So for me, I've always been entrepreneurial in the sense, like, I always wanted to be able to do something. I remember it started out when I was a kid, the old lemonade stand type of thing that you hear kids doing, or a lot of us kids and entrepreneurs did when we were younger. But our neighbor a couple doors down, she would do Kool-Aid, so it was like lemonade versus Kool-Aid, and we were in these like kind of drink wars in the summer times. And we took it to the next level where we made sugar cookies in the shapes of dinosaurs. And we sold cookies and lemonade. We like made the sandwich boards, and like we'd take turns riding our bikes around the neighborhood, with the sign on saying cookies and lemonade, all that kind of stuff, right? So I always had, my little side things when I was a kid. I always wanted to make money because I wanted to save up to buy a Lego set or, whatever it was. And so I always had that spark. And my parents, my dad's a firefighter, and especially back in the 80s, when you're just a regular lower rung firefighter, they didn't make very much money. They don't make enough money now either, for the work that they do. But he had a lot of time off as well. Like, he would work for 24 hours, but then he'd be home for 24 hours and things like that. And so he had a landscaping business, and he had little business ventures that he did. So I always saw my parents, like, they had a job, or my dad had his job, but then he also had these other things that he worked on. So it was always planted in me that I could create a business or do some things like that. But as is very common in our society, I think things are changing drastically and really quickly in the landscape in this mentality. But it was like, you go to school, you get a job, you be responsible, you find a major that's marketable, that,
Right.
all these things that people tell you and talk about. And I just never vibed with that whole thing. It drove me absolutely nuts. I hated school
Right.
growing up. Not because it was more like just the stress of everything. I love the social aspect of school, but I just really disliked the being forced to learn certain things that I had zero interest in. Right.
Yeah.
And so I struggled with grades and things like that when I was younger. But as I grew up, I'm 6'9". You can't tell by the video, but I'm a big dude. And so I played high school basketball, I played college basketball, had a scholarship, played some semi-professional as well. But basketball became like, school was the means for me to further my basketball thing. So I did the things that I needed to for school in order to give myself opportunities to play basketball. That was my motivation for getting grades and stuff, right? And so as I grew up and got married, I have 4 kids now. From the oldest is 16, the youngest is 6. And I followed that path of get a real job, quote unquote, be responsible. You've got a wife and kids, all that kind of stuff. And I jumped from job to job, and I changed career paths a whole bunch of times. I worked in a warehouse at a furniture store. I worked building power cables and power harnesses for big medical devices. And I was a shipping and receiving clerk. I was an inventory clerk. I was a purchasing manager. I was a payroll manager for a company, all these different things. I was just chasing paper. I was looking for somebody to value me enough to pay me what I thought that I needed and stuff. But I found every job that I switched to, and I did lots of different things. I loved the people that I worked with for the most part. We always have some people in the office that you just don't get along with, but I hated the work that I was doing. It was just so unfulfilling, right? And I found myself kind of living in that, Office Space, if you've seen that movie, the Ron Livingston character, just saying like, it's not that I'm lazy. It's just that I don't care, that kind of mentality with work. Then I transitioned again, changed career paths to be a financial advisor. And this was around 2011, 2012 that I started that. And I thought I found my calling because I love people. I love interacting with people. I love getting to know people. I think I have some charisma and I can connect with people really easy. And that transitioned and worked very well for me as a financial advisor, especially as I learned that there are a lot of people that work in that industry who are just churn and burn. They don't care what they need to do to make a sale, to put you into a policy or a product or things like that. And they're just constantly just burning through new clients. I was a breath of fresh air because I wanted to build relationships that lasted. If I was going to help people plan for retirement or things like that, that was still 10 or 15 years, there needed to be a relationship. And that's how I approached things. And, sitting in people's living rooms and all that stuff and hearing their goals and their fears and what they're worried about and what they want to accomplish, and then building a plan to get them moving towards that goal. It was a lot of fun. And so I rose through the ranks really quickly in my firm, and I got a partnership. And I made more money than I ever had in my life up to that point. And I was just like, okay, this is awesome. I finally have something. I like talking to people and I'm making good money for it. This is great. And then that's when, typically when things are going great, life throws you a curveball, whether you believe in a God or a supreme power or the universe or karma or whatever, like just life throws you curveballs every once in a while, And at the end of 2013, that partnership that I was in went away. And so I had to start kind of reboot my whole financial practice after having been in the industry and using up all my warm market and everything like that, and having my pipeline completely dried up. So, I worked my butt off trying to get things going. And it just wasn't working, everything that I tried. And at the end of 2014, I got fired because I didn't hit my sales quota. And so I was left at almost 35 years old with a new baby. 2014, we welcomed our youngest son into our family, and we had just finished paying off the hospital bills, all that stuff from the birth. And here I am at 34, almost 35 years old, asking myself again, what do I want to be when I grow up? And I took actually real introspection on what I wanted to do, because like I said, I had been doing what everyone said I was supposed to do, right? Getting the jobs that would take care of my family, all that kind of stuff. But it was not working for me. And I absolutely hated every day that I went to work for the most part. It was just so stressful to be doing what I was supposed to do and not getting the results or getting the fulfillment that I desired and wanted. And so I knew that I wasn't going to continue on the financial industry because I told myself my justification for failing and not hitting my sales numbers and getting fired and stuff was that I was too nice for the industry, that I wasn't cutthroat and didn't undercut other advisors in my firm in order to further my commissions and things like that, which that was happening a lot in my firm, and it was just stressful. But so I decided that I wanted to. I'd always had this hobby of making videos, and I love stories, and I love movies and TV and all that kind of visual type of storytelling. And I had recently helped a friend from high school film an audition video for The Biggest Loser. He was trying to get on that show, and I remember sitting with him watching the final edit, and he just had tears streaming down his face, and I was like, I think I did pretty good there, if that's that was the result. And so I said, you know what? I love doing that. I've always been creative and always wanted to make a living with my creative abilities. I play the guitar and music and things like that as well. And I just said, I think I'm good at it. Other people tell me I'm good at it. We had lost all of our savings. We were living in a basement of a family member, renting it out at that time, because just everything was just financially, we were just hemorrhaging. I only made $15,000 that in 2014 as a father with 4 kids. It was just really rough. I was like, I've got nowhere to go but up from here. So I'm going to jump in and see what I can create and just work my butt off for a couple of years at least and just see what happens. So I said, okay, I'm going to do videos. I'm going to have a video production company. And I didn't even have a camera to do the work that I needed to do and stuff. That's how convinced I was that I wanted to go down this path, that I was willing to do it without having the tools necessary to really do it, right? And so I borrowed a camera from my dad and just started going out and trying to get familiar with the cameras and all that kind of stuff, and just get better at my craft and try to find some clients that I can make some videos for, because I had 0 connections, no book of business, no people to call on. It was just like, I'm going to do this, and I have no idea how I'm going to do it, but I just started running. And so that's what started. It was 2015 is when I stepped into the entrepreneurial journey. And just to think where I was 5 years ago today versus where I'm at now is pretty amazing journey, which I'm super blessed to be able to be in the position that I'm in now with how I help businesses. But I don't know, where'd you like me to go from there? Because it wasn't like I started my business and woohoo, everything was fine. So, there was a lot of other stuff.
Let's talk about, thankfully, I'm a physical therapist, and I had that to fall back on when I lost my business or when we had to close it. But that year I made $22,000 that year, and I have a wife and 2 kids. And I went from making about 85 to 22 when we had our own business. And my wife and I talk about it's just by the grace of God that we still have our house and everything. And it was really hard. And so I want you to talk about how was that conversation with your wife about, hey, I'm going to not go back to a 9-to-5 job. I'm going to start this business. What was that like?
Well, I am one of the luckiest dudes alive when it comes to my spouse. She has always been supportive through all the different career changes and all of those things. Mm-hmm. at being like, if you think or you feel like this is what we need to do, let's do it.
Right.
And so when everything was kind of crashing down and there was all this turmoil with getting fired and all of these kinds of things, I'm thinking about what I want to do, because I did go and interview at a couple other firms, to see what it was like to work within the industry at some other office and things like that, but just wasn't feeling right. And so I just said, you know what, like, I want to just create things and have fun doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this is the way that I can do that. And, we talked about money because it was really rough. Like 2014, that Christmas, right after I got, fired and everything, like, it was so sad for me as a father to like look at what we had to give or
Mm-hmm.
what was under the tree that Christmas. And like, I had one of those like ugly cry moments, right, where I was just like, felt like a complete failure.
Mm-hmm.
As a husband, as a father, as a provider for my family, with that role. And so we talked about, what it would take or what we would do. And luckily, we were in a position where our savings had been depleted throughout that year. And then we were living in a basement of a family member's apartment. We just kind of, our basement of a family member. And as we started to weigh, okay, what's the worst case scenario here? Like, if it doesn't work, what happens? We might be behind on rent, but we weren't going to be kicked out, because we had talked, they'd known that we had struggled that year and
Sure.
That kind of stuff as well. So we weren't going to be homeless. And if all else failed, then I had lots of skills and I'm really good with people. I would be able to find something else. But
right.
So she was super supportive of it. And I'm sure that there are times when she might have been like stressed like crazy and maybe pulling her hair out and like, what are we doing? What are you doing, Nick? All these kinds of things. But I think that she had seen that I had been working my butt off in all these other jobs and all these things trying to provide, but I was just not happy and it wasn't working. And there was just something about going down this avenue and taking my own, destiny into my own hands, so to speak, where I wasn't going to be relying on somebody else to see my merits and decide if I get a 1% raise after a review or, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, I can make whatever I want to make, and that goes to me, and I create it and I'm responsible for it, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so that kind of gave me more enthusiasm and passion to go and do it, because she, despite everything else we'd been through in our lives and our marriage up to that point, that she was still supportive, and she wasn't like, nope, you can't do that. You got to do the X, Y, and Z, Awesome. So that helped a ton.
Yeah. That's great. I think what you talked about for Christmas was my biggest thing with our business failing, was as a provider and as a husband and a dad, I was just like, man, what a loser you are. It's, and of course my wife never said that to me and my kids didn't feel it, but you as a man or whatever, who you just want to not fail like that. Nobody wants to fail, but that was really hard. So I know your business didn't go from 0 to $1 million in the first day or whatever. So kind of tell us about the early process of starting the business. What kind of struggles and successes did you have, and how did you do that?
Well, the biggest struggle that I had to start out was that I just didn't know anybody. I didn't have connections with businesses or know a lot of business owners that I could reach out to and things like that. So one was identifying who I could serve and what kind of business that I wanted to work with. Because when you start out, you're willing to work with anybody for anything in order to just get some experience and get some things under your belt so that you have proof to show to other people. And I remember the first paid client that I ever had was a CrossFit gym. And they were entering, they needed to create a video to enter a contest talking about why they started their business or why they did this and that. And so we talked on the phone, and we agreed to $250 was the price that we agreed on. And I was so scared to ask for, quote unquote, that much money, right? I was just like so terrified that they're going to say no and think it was too expensive. But I went through and we did the process. We did an interview. I did a shoot at the gym, all these different things. And then again, sitting down with them, showing them the final edit. And again, they had tears like streaming down their face. I'm like, okay, I'm good at this. And I was thinking, I did such a good job on this that I'm just going to get referrals. They're going to like scream from the rooftops, Nic did this amazing video for me and you need to go blah, blah, blah. And that's what I expected was just going to open the floodgates. But guess what? Nothing came of it. They loved it. They did tell people about how great of a job I did, that kind of stuff, but it didn't bring me any business. Mm-hmm. I was so naive and new to the concept of marketing myself and putting my message out there and like being targeted and directed on who I wanted to work with and that kind of stuff, that I was just hoping that things would just come to me naturally because I'm a good guy and I make nice videos. If you approach your business that way, you're going to be like me and you're going to work your butt off and get $200 for, like a week's worth of work when you add it all up and you're like, this is not sustainable. I can't make a living and support a family on making that little money. And so I started to try to figure out what kind of businesses I could help and the ones I wanted to work with. And I didn't want to just like make a video for the sake of them having a video. I wanted them to be able to have something that they were just super proud of and would help people understand who they are and why they did the work that they did. So I started kind of paying attention to what I was seeing out there that other people were doing. But at the same time, I still needed to make money. I still had rent to pay every month and, all these kinds of things. And so I would go out on days that I didn't have something that I needed to do or anything on the calendar. I would just go out with my camera and shoot B-roll and just kind of practice making creative or compelling visuals out of nothing. I'd go and shoot snow melting off of tree branches, stuff like that, just to get better at my visual skills and stuff like that. And one day I was going out and I saw some smoke off in the distance. I'm walking up to my car, and it was still cold and wintertime at this point. And I was like, that's not like a normal like chimney fire from a fireplace. So I throw my camera in the back of the car and drive, and I try to find the smoke. And I found a house that was like on fire, like fully engulfed in flames. And the fire crews hadn't got there yet. I could hear all the sirens coming, but I parked in the neighborhood. I grabbed my camera and just was like, I'm going to get some footage of this. This is crazy, And a police officer saw me and my camera. He was like, oh, are you media? And I was just like, yes, and he's like, oh, come over here. And he got me like access into the backyard of the house that like neighbored up to the house. So I got like really close shots of the flames just roaring off the roof. And then as the fire department came in and started knocking it down, I had just like a front row seat, and it was awesome. So later that evening, I was talking with one of the reporters here that was covering the story and getting the footage into them and stuff and getting it on the news. And it got on the news. It was great. And I put the little watermark that had my name and that kind of stuff on it. And thinking, oh, if this is on the news, a lot of people are going to watch that and somebody might, do this or that. But nothing happened once again, no business came from that. Fast forward a few months, it was actually April 2015 that I reached back out to that reporter. I just had this thought pop in my head, like, hey, reach out to Shara Park. That's the reporter. And so I reached out and said, hey, do you guys ever work with freelancers? Or is that just something that Spider-Man made me think was real, that, newspapers and news stations hire freelancers? And she told me that they actually did work with freelancers a ton. So she got me in touch with the chief photographer and all this stuff with the NBC affiliate here in Salt Lake. And I got a job, or a position as a freelancer, freelance photojournalist with KSL. They're the NBC affiliate here. And I started working pretty much full-time hours, filling in for guys on vacation, or if there was, just shuffles in schedules, shooting news stories. And that helped me really get really good at my visual storytelling, and having to work in a fast-paced environment where, you know, they expected you to shoot and edit and have a story done in 45 minutes so it could be right to air if they needed it. And so I worked that pretty much from spring until October that year, almost full time. That's what I did for the bulk of my stuff. And I made okay money. It was like $20 an hour. So it was more than anything I'd been doing. And so it brought some stability, which took some stress off. And especially as entrepreneurs, when you're loaded with stress, like sometimes your brain doesn't function as well as it needs to. And so it helped me get a little bit of relieve some of that stress, so I could see things with my business a little bit more clear. And so I was building and working and doing that, but at the same time trying to get clients and things like that. Ultimately, that led me to wanting to being a one-man band with news. Like, I was doing the camera work, I was doing the lighting, I was doing the sound, I was doing the editing. As a freelancer, you rarely go out with a reporter. So I was actually conducting the interviews and asking the questions and building that relationship and that rapport to be able to go up to a stranger and ask him about what happened and that kind of stuff. And ultimately, I wanted to understand what it was like to work in a specialized area, like on a film set, where they have a camera department and that's all that they focus on. And there's lighting and there's sound and there's the post-production and all that stuff. So I wanted to get onto a film set, and Utah has quite a good amount of like films that get produced here. And so I got onto a set, and I remember the first movie set I ever worked on. I was an unpaid intern at 35 years old.
Yeah.
Right. And I was helping craft services, crafty as we call it. And that's all the snacks and the drinks and stuff for the cast and crew throughout the whole day. And we were at a park. So all day long, I was carrying cases of water and soda and stuff across the park, and then just handing out stuff to the crew throughout the day. And, you know, not getting any money. But by the end of that show, I came on halfway through. So there were only a couple of weeks left of production at that point. I had got hired to work on the lighting department as the grip and electric, and then I worked in camera department as a second assistant cameraman for the last few days. And that just doesn't happen in Hollywood. Like, when you come out as an unpaid intern and you're working up in the camera department within a couple of weeks. So I was blessed that way. And I just fell in love with the production process again. I'm like, this is awesome. Being able to make movies and hang out with movie stars, this is so cool. But the problem was, you work long hours and you don't make a lot of money, especially on lower budget stuff, you know, where on the good days I was making like $350 a day for a 12-hour work day. So you do the time value of money and all that kind of stuff. The hourly was really not very good. But so I got frustrated because I was working my butt off. I was getting really good at the skills that I needed to create videos and make them look good and all that kind of stuff. And I was building a network and that, all those kinds of things, and building a name for myself in the Utah film communities. But I was tired as a dog. I worked mostly in the lighting departments and grip and electric. And I would be home on the weekends, and I'd really only have like a day and a half's worth of time to recoup, and then I was right back at it on Monday. And I've got kids that I want to play with, but I'm just so tired and my body's breaking down, you know, and it was frustrating. And then you add on the fact that I wasn't making very much money.
Right.
You know, we were on food stamps and Medicaid, those programs, just because we qualified for them. You know, we didn't seek it out, but it was just when we went to go apply for our health insurance, it was like, nope, you can't afford it. You have to come over here. And that's how we got into that whole stuff. So I just kept working hard, trying to get better at my craft and meet more people, but I was stuck not making enough money. And it was 2017 in July. I think it was July 7th is the exact day when this fateful day happened. But I had just learned that we were being audited by the state of Utah for receiving too much assistance from the food stamps program, right? So I had to give them every pay stub that we'd had for 2 years, our tax returns, bank statements, all these kinds of things. And it was just so frustrating because that year, the year before, I had only made $25,000. So
Right.
I was like, we only made $25,000 and they're coming after us or auditing us for having too much assistance. Like it just was so frustrating. And so I went to Facebook to complain about it and seek some validation. I did this long old post where I typed it all out, and I got what I was looking for with a bunch of people being like, it's okay, like you're working hard, it's gonna be, you're a good guy, that kind of stuff. But then it was later that evening that I got what I needed, and it was a message from a friend that I've had since elementary school, but as we had grown up, our lives just went separate directions. And he's a successful entrepreneur. He has a business based out of Boise, Idaho. They do over 150 million, $200 million a year in revenue. His name is Russell Brunson. The company is ClickFunnels, right?
Right.
And he messaged me. He's like, hey, I saw your post. And I know we haven't talked for a long time, so I don't want to overstep my bounds, but I think I know what the problem is. And if you're open to it, I'd love to just share my thoughts with you. And I was like, yeah, dude, and so we talked, and I was focusing. He was like, so what are you trying to do with your business and stuff? And I was like, I'm trying to get really good at my skills, and I'm trying to build a network and stuff, and everything. And he laughed because he's like, that's exactly what I thought. Like, you're focusing on the wrong part. If you want to make money, you have to learn how to make money with the skills that you've been developing and the network that you have, and that kind of stuff. And so he gave me some personal coaching on some things, and I thrive on coaching. Like, again, I played Division I college basketball, got a scholarship because I would do what the coaches asked, and I worked my butt off, and I got results, right? And so I applied it to my business, and I started to see a change as I started to say, okay, I'm really good at connecting with people. I'm really good at making videos and understanding the technical things that go behind creating visual stories. And now I just need to figure out how those skills and talents can make other people money in their business. And once I made that shift, like everything just like switched for me. Like, it wasn't immediate. I still had to struggle and do things, but like that was in 2017. 2018 came around, and I had made a little bit more money. Things were going well, but it wasn't until I actually like joined a coaching program and stuff to kind of help me get some direction. But like in April 2018, I hadn't made very much money at all. And then by December of that same year, I had gone over 6 figures in 8 months.
Wow.
And we moved out of the basement of the family member into this house that we're in right now.
Sure.
I had a garage for the first time ever in my life to park a car, just little things that are silly to so many people. It meant so much to me. And it was because I had made that shift on being able to take my passions, my skills, and my expertise, and to be able to position them in a way that served and helped other people. And also help them make money, because when I'm creating these videos or stories for businesses, it's to help them leverage to sell more of their products and services, in the long run. And so once I just made that shift in where I was focusing, it just changed so much in my belief in myself. Like we were talking before we started rolling about my Friendly Giant Films video. Yeah. Like, that came as a result of me making that shift in my mindset. And things like that, and needing to put a marketing piece out for myself and talk about myself and things like that. And once I did that, like, the right types of I started getting introductions and finding people approaching me that had higher budgets, that had a couple of $1,000s that time to spend for a video or for a campaign, and things like that. And that just kind of has grown and grown, where I was having clients pay me, $25,000, $15,000, and stuff to be able to do one video with them and stuff. And so as I just made that shift in focusing on how I could make money for myself, but use my skills to help other people make money in their business, because I have skills that you don't, and you have skills that I don't, and those kinds of things, to be able to fill in the gaps with where I was really good, and give results to people. It was just like things really started to ramp up, for me. And like I said, it's fun to talk about the numbers, but the impact, being able to be out of a basement, being off of those social programs, being self-sufficient that way, and not having to worry about it. I got to take my wife on a cruise in January of 2019, which was the first time we got to go anywhere together, other than just like an overnight staycation, kind of thing. It was just so amazing how it brought those opportunities to be able to do those things. But I had to make that shift within myself so that I was approaching my potential clients and all those kinds of things in the right way to be able to bring the value and help them out. So
awesome. Wow. Nic, so, I mean, not only did you make an impact on, other people's lives, you made a huge impact on your family's life. You've impacted other people's businesses and the gosh, I can't talk. The state where you're not taking the help anymore, so somebody else can get that. So I mean, just the impact has been phenomenal from that. Wow, man, that's amazing. That's a great story, and you tell it so well, obviously, because you're talented.
Well, and there's so much more that goes into it, of course. But
sure.
Like the journey, the thing to remember is that every single one of you as people that are listening, and either you're trying to figure out what you want to do, or you're struggling trying to make what you want to do work, or you have things in there working and you're just ready to take it to the next level. It's just like you have to believe. I always talk about never let your your brain talk your heart out of doing something.
Yes.
Because I believe in God and that kind of stuff. So I believe that there's guidance on things. But like when you have a feeling that you need to reach out to somebody or act or do this or that, like as soon as it's humanly possible, act upon it.
Yeah.
And do something.
Right.
There's nothing worse than having that thought, and it kind of nags at you for a little bit, but you keep, I'll do that later, or you push it away because you're afraid of putting yourself out there or whatever it might be. And then to the horror of the regret that comes when you see somebody else do the same thing and it is just a major success, or here, just there are so many opportunities that can be missed when our brain takes over and goes through analyzing mode instead of listening with our hearts and taking the step. It's scary. Like I said, I started my company without having a camera to film videos with. Like, that's people like, you're going to do what? But I took the step, and each opportunity that came, I still have like these goals and where I want to take my business. I can see that clearly, and I know the steps that I'm putting in place to get there, but it's not a straight line. It's going to go through some mist and fog, or through a swamp maybe, or, down through a volcano, or you never know where it's going to go, but you have to take each step.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing, is as I made those shifts and took the steps myself, like, opportunities and platforms started to arise where I started doing I did a Facebook Live every day. Starting, it was in 2018. I did one every day, and I've done over 1,000 Facebook Lives and live interviews and things like that since then. And it's just crazy. But by doing that, opened up more doors for me to be able to share my message with more people. But then I found my voice, I found my message, and I was able to tune it in and dial it in through trial and error on Facebook Lives.
Right.
was my platform, right? And
sure.
It opened the door to me being able to speak on stage in front of thousands of people and to share my story and to be a guest in summits and podcasts like this. And all sorts of cool things happened when I just started taking the steps and promoting myself and, telling my story that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a business coach and, or two actually, and we talked about another entrepreneur that we know who's doing very well. And he has done a live video every day for the past 3 years. He's, been on vacation and missed a few days, but he has a podcast with almost 600 episodes. And one of the things he told me was, he said, do you think that he would be where he is today had he not been consistently putting out content every day for the last 3 years? Not, absolutely not. And so to hear you say that and reaffirm it, it's amazing. And I think people already know that. And I was listening to, I'm trying to figure out how I want to do the intro for this podcast. And so I was listening to Steve Larson's podcast, I think Sales Funnel Radio yesterday. I went back to the first one and listened because I really like Steve's energy. And, and he was talking about, being a consistent content producer and putting things out. And I know Russell Brunson talks about that as well. So I think there's a ton to it because you have to be, content. Somebody told me content wasn't king. Consistency is king because you have to consistently put out that content.
Yeah.
So I like that.
It's absolutely true, because when you make the decision, okay, I'm going to do it. You're going to go through and I remember my first Facebook Live. I've always been comfortable in front of people and speaking and that kind of stuff. That wasn't a hang up for me. I know that terrifies a ton of people. Right. But I look at even my first Facebook Live that I did. I remember the day. It was when SpaceX launched the Falcon Heavy rocket with like the Tesla that they the guy off to Mars. That was the first Facebook Live that I did, talking about it because I loved space when I was a kid and I wanted to be an astronaut and all that kind of stuff. But I look at that versus where I am today and how I even present myself and my energy and how I do things. And it's so different. Like you grow. So like the consistency is key, because you can go out and have the best intentions. You could write and like storyboard or map out a script or whatever that you want to do. And it could be fantastic content. But if you do it once and you feel self-conscious, or you're worried because, or you feel bad because only like 3 people watched it, or whatever it might be, and so you stop. You're like, well, it's not worth it. When I get 5,000 followers, then I'll start doing it, or that kind of stuff. You're doing yourself a huge disservice, because in that journey, in that struggle of figuring out, now when I started, I just used to do my Facebook Lives with my laptop with the camera that's built right in. Now I have a program and a DSLR and lights, and it's more like a show than, a talking head or, that kind of stuff. And that's just how my journey has, how I've wanted to build it. But I wouldn't be there or where I am now if I hadn't done those nearly 100 daily Facebook Lives, just talking to my laptop or talking to my phone.
Right.
And you really find your message and your voice and get comfortable with the notion that nobody's watching right now.
That's right.
But it doesn't matter, because somebody is always watching.
Yeah.
And you get really, really dialed in and focused and understand who you can serve, how you can serve them, and the things that resonate with them, which goes back into the messaging and the things that you share through whatever medium it is that you decide to publish. So.
Right. Awesome. We all start with 0 followers. Most of us do. Good. What skills do you think, Nic, has really helped you be successful?
For me, like I've mentioned, I'm really good at being able to connect with people. Like that's just a gift, not necessarily, it is a skill, but like I just have that ability to be able to connect with people and to listen. When I'm sitting with a client that's wanting, or a potential client that's wanting to work on some stories or create some videos, like it's more about, okay, let's make this cool sizzle video and I have an idea already in my head. It's more like we have this conversation and what are your goals and what are you wanting to accomplish? What things are you struggling with? What are the people that you serve struggling with? And listening and asking the right questions to help us come up with what that core message is. So I'd say like listening is definitely one. If you're in anything with the marketing that you put out, you have to be listening to what the market is doing or saying. You put something out and you see what comes back, and then you adjust and build as you go. So being able to listen and not just be stuck in my own way of like, no, I'm going to do this and this is the thing. And I don't care what anybody says, that kind of thing. So having that flexibility through hearing what people are saying. But the other one is just like, taking action is a skill. It takes a lot of guts to put yourself out there. And I don't mean to discredit, or make you feel bad if you're self-conscious about doing a Facebook Live or starting a podcast or even doing an Instagram story or something simple like that. Like, you have to be able to take the steps forward. Like, you have to be brave enough to start that business. You have to be brave enough to pivot. Like right now, when we're recording this, like we're in the midst of the COVID-19 madness, right?
Yeah.
As of this morning, 22 million people in the last 4 weeks have filed for unemployment. Right. And that's just crazy. And it hasn't been seen before. And there's a lot of uncertainty. And as a business owner, when things are uncertain or crazy like they are right now, if you're sitting back and waiting to see what's going to happen in order for you to come up with a game plan, you're going to be a casualty of the madness. Yeah. So you have to have the courage to take action, and you don't like imperfect action. You hear a lot of people say imperfect action is better than perfect inaction and things like that. You don't have to have everything figured out. You don't have to have everything mapped out or built and ready to go, all that kind of stuff. I launched a course last summer about using Facebook Live to grow your business and things like that. I didn't have a membership site. I didn't have all of that stuff. I just knew that people wanted it. So I sold it, sold the idea. I got 21 people to come in to my initial, opening run. And then I had everything mapped out, but it wasn't in place. And as they all came in, I was like, okay, this week we're going to do this and this and this. And we just did it. You just have to be able to take the steps. So listening and truly hearing what the market is telling you that they want, and then taking the action steps to actually give it to them through your, very unique way of doing it. Those are the two skills that I have been super huge for me in my growth.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, last question. I told you I wouldn't take much of your time, but dude, you're so endearing. I want to talk to you the rest of the night, but I know my family's already knocked on this door 3 times. So what book would you recommend to someone that wants to say start out as an entrepreneur, a business owner, whatever, just to grow their business or their life?
Right. Oh man, if I had to pick one,
or two.
I'll go with the one that I just finished a little bit ago, and because I learned these skills now, but I'm like, oh my gosh, if I would have started out, this would have been awesome. And it's called Never Split the Difference, by Chris Voss.
Yes, and
he was like the head hostage negotiator for the FBI, and he taught just learning. Because as you're going to start a business, you have to negotiate. You have to figure out your prices. You have to come up. You might have to do some free work in exchange for things like that. Knowing how to negotiate to be able to bring value, but also get the outcome that you desire, while having the other people feel happy about it. And, there's no way I get somebody to sign on a line to do a $25,000 video without them understanding and seeing the value or the benefit for them. Right. So, that's my favorite book that I've read when it comes to business and learning a skill and tweaking some mindset. So that would be my pick number 1 for sure.
Wonderful. That is my absolutely favorite book that I've ever read.
So good.
I love Chris Voss. I saw Josh Forty interview him on his podcast, and I know Josh through another friend, and I immediately sent him a Facebook message. I said, I want Chris Voss's phone number right now.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. It's a really good book. I've listened to it 2 or 3 times, And Chris Voss is the only YouTube ad that I do not fast forward through. I've watched his YouTube ad about 20 times now. So
I know his little masterclass ad. Every day is a negotiation.
Yeah. And I love his voice. He has such a great voice and all that too. So anyway, awesome, Nick. Yep. Well, Nick, I know you were giving out a free resource for your business recently. What is that about?
So I call it the Storytelling for Business framework. It's a 9-step framework that I developed through my whole life study and obsession with stories, through everything that I learned through Hollywood and working on movies with master storytellers, and then applying it to sales and marketing and things like that today. And so it's a simple, a simple guide to help you understand and look at your business and the stories that you tell. Because if you're in business, you have to be telling stories. I don't care how you define it or what you call it, if it's marketing or branding or messaging, it's stories, and storytelling is what humanity is all about. Yeah. And so this framework just helps you look at your stories about why you started your business or why you created a product or service and things like that, and to be able to tell it in a compelling way that gets your audience and the people who hear it to really resonate and connect with you, fall in love with you and what you're all about, and then understand what you can do for them, so that when you transition to a sales message or, whatever your process is, that it just makes them so much more qualified to come in as clients. And so it's a free thing. And I've absolutely loved being able to share it with people. I work with people one-on-one on building their stories as well and stuff. And I always put them through this framework, whether it's beforehand, now that I have this resource, I can be like, hey, go and study this, or just walking them through the process with questions and stuff. The stories that come out after building them upon this framework are so much more powerful. And so that's what my little gift is and stuff like that I'm just trying to get into the hands of as many entrepreneurs and businesses as possible, because especially in today's climate where things are so uncertain, if people don't understand you or feel a connection to you, if they are feeling the pinch financially or whatever it might be, in order to get them to open their wallets and work with you or buy your product or service or whatever it might be, if they understand you and who you are and what drives you and why you're passionate about what you're doing, why you're fighting for them in the midst of all of this crazy stuff, they're going to be more willing and more apt to making that decision to go with you, as opposed to keeping the money to themselves or partnering with going with somebody else. And so stories are the key when it comes to really building something that's going to be long lasting. Mm-hmm. You can have flashes in the pan, and all that kind of stuff. But if you want people to come back again and again and again, you think of Disney, you think of Apple, people come every year, even though they have a phone in their pocket that works just fine, and go spend $1,000 for a new one because they have a relationship with a brand.
Yes.
Disney changes the prices of their tickets every year. They go up, and people gladly pay them and pay $14 for a churro or, that kind of stuff, because of the relationship they have. And that's because of the stories that the brand has told. And of course, they give results with the product that they sell as well.
Absolutely. Where can we get that resource?
It is free right on www.friendlygiantfilms.com, right there on the very front of the homepage. You can grab it right there, and you can watch a little video to understand how I use story and video together as well. So
yeah, perfect. Little disclaimer: you might tear up when you watch that video. Don't watch it before you get on a podcast. Nick, thank you so much. You've been such a gracious person, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks, Jeremy. It's my pleasure. I love it.
Awesome. Talk to you later.
See ya.